All right.
Beautiful. All right, yeah, so I wanted to first go over a few terms just to make sure that we're on the same page and I don't say something that isn't understood. Sometimes when I talk about things, I'll talk about the back end, which is basically, it's normally like in a website builder. It's basically what you see when you're editing your website, as opposed to what someone would see if they went to the URL. So the part hidden from view of regular website visitors, the part you see when editing your site. So that's when you go into Squarespace or WordPress and you're doing all of the editing. That's like the back end. And I think that might come up a few times. So I wanted to clear that up. Domain is the unique name by which a website is identified. So that's basically what's in between the www and the .com. So that can be customized. It can be, when we get into website builders, we'll talk a little bit about like which ones include a domain name, which ones don't include a domain name, and things like that. And again, if anyone has questions, like feel free to unmute themselves and just interrupt me, because I can't really, it's hard for me to keep up with the chat. I don't know how people do that. I've been to some of these Zoom meetings that people are like answering the chat at the same time. Okay, landing page. The landing page is the page where a visitor first enters a website. So basically you go to www.whatever.com and it's the first page that pops up when you visit the website. So we might, that might come up. Then navigation is a menu of pages that allows visitors to move around the site. So normally that's at the top and it's a list of all of the pages or categories of the website. So maybe it'll say, web store or about or contact, all of those. That's normally at the top, depending on the website, is the navigation. Template is system used to create a consistent design, includes both structural information about how the site should be set up, as well as stylistic information about how the site should look. So that is normally, again, when using a website builder like Squarespace, like WordPress, like Wix, all of those, you will normally be asked to choose a template at the get-go. And that is, it has a system of how the pages work, and it also has an aesthetic. And normally you can change both of those things to an extent, but using the template will get you most of that way, so that you only have to kind of tweak a few things. Web pages are the single pages that are linked together to make the website. So like I said, the navigation shows you all of the pages or categories of the pages. And when I say individual pages, that's literally like the flat screen that you can see, and the pages that you kind of click through to different pages that make up the entire website. Everyone's still with me? Everything good? Cool. So I don't know what's happening. You also see the slideshow? Okay. Motive. So the motive is what you want your website to do. And I always feel like it's one of those things that's really easy to overlook, and to like get right into how the website looks or how you want it to be organized, etc. But before jumping into all of those moving parts, I think it helps a lot to start with your motive, and it's also something that you can always come back to. So is your motive to sell art? Maybe, I know we had a few like illustrators or painters maybe, or knitwear I saw. So maybe it's to sell your art, and your main function for the website is to have your store kind of front and center. Others, maybe they want to impress galleries. Maybe you're trying to get your work into galleries, and this is what, when you apply for different things, they're going to look at your website. Maybe for other people, the main motive is to share your art with friends and family, and it's not necessarily supposed to be like quote unquote professional or whatnot. So I think it's very important to sit down and like chat with a friend or journal, etc., about what you really want to accomplish with the site. And again, like it's a really good thing to always come back to when you're trying to make decisions. And you're like, whoa, again, so many options, so many decisions to make. And you just think about how it relates to your motive. So once you kind of get your motive, that can feed these two main elements of your website. And they're huge, huge categories, but it's style and organization. So basically using, like, again, like I said, like using that motive to inform these parts of your website, which is basically form and function. Essentially, the style and organization is kind of like a form and function of the website. So the style is a combination of aesthetic decisions that you would make. So this is the kind of general look and feel of the site. First impressions that people will have will be probably because of the style. It's everything from the colors to the fonts to the amount of negative space, which also can be sometimes called padding when you start using website builders. All of that kind of aesthetic kind of group of things is the style of the website, for more or less. And then the second part is organization. So this determines how the viewer will navigate through the website, what to click on, and to be able to get to a certain place, what pages, how you're going to organize the individual pages. Maybe they need to be in categories. Maybe you need to figure out what categories you even need to have for your work. For some of us, that's easy because it can be by medium, and for others, maybe it's not as easy to try to figure out what makes the most sense to organize the pages. And we'll talk, I'm going to break down both of these and we'll talk a little bit more about them. All right, so style. Here are just some like basic questions that you can kind of ask yourself as you're using that motive to decide style choices. What colors complement my work? So maybe, so some templates will already have colors that may be perfect for what you want to do. And sometimes you have to kind of change the template colors to complement your work. So for instance, well, I guess we'll get into that a little bit more because I have some examples. So what aspects of my art do I want to emphasize? Which is similar to what colors complement my work, but also, if you have very detailed graphite drawings, for instance, maybe having everything be white background will emphasize that subtle graphite drawing, for instance. Or maybe you make very, very playful art, or maybe you make children's illustrations or something like that, and you want to use a more illustrative font that will kind of not only complement the work, but emphasize that quality that is already inherent in your art too. And then what do the images I will be using look like next to each other? So that goes for still images and moving images, so videos or photos. So maybe your images are really, really busy, and you want to show them with a little bit more space and maybe on a very specific solid color or a white, solid white background, because maybe you make very intricate paintings that have a lot of busy elements going on in it, and having multiple colors in the background or having a texture in the background will just kind of burden the eyes and not let you get to those details that you want to show in your art. So that's another example, is thinking about how your images will relate to each other and relate to the background and all of that. So this is actually a friend of mine's website. If you want to go to this website, the link is down there in the bottom, that you can just type that into your browser and kind of look around the website. So I picked this as an example. This is a friend of mine. She's a cinematographer. So her landing page is actually, you can't see it in my slideshow, but if you go to her website, it is like a compilation of clips from projects that she's worked on. So from the get-go, you get to this landing page and it is a moving image. You know that she works in video. You know she's a cinematographer, and you get a little bit of a taste of some of the work that she works on. The navigation at the top is super simple and clear, to kind of let that colorful, vibrant video take the front seat. And when you click on the work page in the navigation, this is what comes up. So it's basically a preview of each project with the title underneath, and that's how she's decided to organize it. She has it on a black background, which in my opinion was because she has these great moving images that are sometimes more busy, and the colors are so vibrant, and they feel even more vibrant when they're on this black background. It also gives you kind of this movie theater feel. So again, like if she's thinking about the motive and her work and wanting to showcase this, you know, moving images, really bright colors, and wants it to really pop, you know, like the videos she makes really pop, then that's why this black background was chosen maybe. And another little thing is that the font styling of maybe her name at the top and the navigation is super, super simple. It's like just a way to get you to those videos. Again, everything is back, kind of like takes backstage or backseat to those videos. But then the names of each video are a little bit more decorative. And I think that also just complements that she does really fun, vibrant work, that she wants it to be a little bit playful, not too serious, and just kind of clue into that a little bit. And I think that that's a really nice combination. I think it shows her clientele to have kind of a fun but still sophisticated font as that secondary font. So that's like one version, or one website example that has some, you know, you first look at it and you think it's just very simple. Maybe it was like started off as a simple template, but those different design choices were made with the motive and the art in mind. This is another website that you can go to. It's a lot more simple, a lot less. It's not necessarily, this one I just grabbed off of Squarespace's. Squarespace has example websites, people that use Squarespace to build their websites and have those examples in kind of an archive on their website. So this was just taken from there. So this was built in Squarespace. Landing page, again, this landing page is just fun, shows food, shows people being whimsy, very limited color palette, also vibrant in a completely different way. Very clear at the top navigation, where to go, what different things need to be said and make sense for this particular company's or group's website. So this is one of the pages, and it's a little different from like the typical art website that's a portfolio website. But when I'm thinking about the virtual studio, virtual yoga studio, maybe there's different plans, maybe there's different tips or things like that, or maybe you do poetry and there's some written element to your art. And this just shows a very clear example of how you can make something really cohesive and fun even when it's just text. You can see that this company, I'm not exactly sure what they do, but it seems like they do something a lot with food and restaurants, kind of like helping restaurants get into different scenes and like market themselves and also be sustainable and things like that. So they just have this very subtle image of food in the background. That it's just kind of like a little bit, I'm trying to think of the right word. It's kind of like almost Renaissance-y, but the way that it's the color and in the background and with the font, it's also very modern. And I think that makes sense for when some of these ideas that it looks like they are trying to help people with, like menu and recipe development and food advocacy and sustainability. They've just picked this image that uplifts that, and used just a few colors that feel very fresh. Kind of looks like a fresh tomato color or something. almost farm-like veggies. So those two are this one and the last slide are both of the same website, and I think show how color, space, and overall look and feel can kind of be paired with the work that you do, basically. And then I was going to have a little bit of time if we wanted to, if anyone had any questions, and then we can take a short break. It's not, I thought that would take longer to get through, but that section, so we don't need a long break. But does anybody have questions? I'm looking in the chat to see if anyone.
Just a quick one.
Yeah.
The different websites that you showed, are they all Squarespace websites? And are they actually able to, I guess, sell on it or make some kind of contact or anything?
Yes, I only know for sure that this last one is Squarespace. I'm not, let me see, what were the other ones? I don't know about Julia's, if it was Squarespace or not, but most of the platforms, including Squarespace, you are able to have a web store. Is that what you're saying? And like someone to like buy something off of it?
Yeah.
So most of the, and again, like we'll go through the website builders, but most of them have that capacity actually. And it looks like this lunchgroup.com, if you go, you can go to these websites and they do have this shop button up there, and they do have like a tote bag that they're selling, kind of like a reusable grocery bag type situation.
Oh yeah, thank you. They're selling bags so crazy out here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else have questions? Okay. Well, does anybody feel like they need a break yet? I kind of feel like we could keep going if we wanted to. Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, let's keep going.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so we just talked about style. Now I was going to switch to kind of talking about organization. Again, kind of informed by that motive that you keep coming back to. So here are just a few little questions. So what categories make sense for the work or information? that I want to include. So this is how to group your art, maybe like how it makes sense. Maybe this goes back to kind of, I touched on this a little bit. Maybe it's by medium. A few of you said that you work in multiple mediums. So maybe there's a painting category and an illustration category on your website. And that's what makes sense in how to separate and categorize your work. For other people, maybe it's by client, for instance. Because you only do graphic design and you want to pare it down. Maybe it's print versus web. Maybe it's all the different types of clients. And then how does it make sense to organize those categories? So now that you have these two major categories, do you need subcategories, or are those two good enough? Are there other pages you want to include in addition to your work, for instance? So this is one example. Again, feel free to go to that link, type it in. It's artandsuchevan.com, another friend of mine. And I know that he used a website builder. I should ask him if he used Squarespace or not. It might show at the bottom of his website if he didn't take off the watermark. But basically, I wanted to show this one because of organization. So he has up at the top at his navigation, he kind of has a lot of categories, almost too many categories, but I think it's kind of necessary for his work. So he has miniatures, illustration, paintings, books, store, tattoo, and contact. He's kind of a Renaissance man, a little bit like myself. I also have a lot of categories and kind of span a lot of different mediums. So he starts off with a good amount of categories, but as you kind of go into it more, let me go to the next page. You can see why. His paintings are very specifically different than his illustration and his miniatures. So when you scroll through, if you click on paintings and scroll through those, it's just a gallery view of paintings. He didn't feel, that's not his like main thing. So it doesn't seem like he needed to put titles on everything with the, you know, materials used. Some artists really need to do that, want to do that, have very important titles and everything. And he didn't feel that way. He felt like, I just want to show the paintings that I can do and that I've done that I like. But he didn't even feel the need to be able to click through and get more information on them. They just are, it's just a gallery wall. That's another word that they'll probably have in the website builders, gallery. It's basically just a whole wall of photos. And so that's what he's done for the painting section. And then, but for the book section, it looks completely different. So if you click on the book section, he wants to have more information for each piece because of the format of that book. Like, for instance, the book itself it has multiple pages, right? So he might want to have more than one image per book that he makes. He makes these tiny little books. So for that, if you click on each individual book that has the title underneath it, it will go to a whole nother page that kind of looks like this. And it has a whole row of images, multiple images that you can kind of scroll through to see more details of the book. At the bottom, he has a little bit more information, which says limited edition of 50 hardcover books, the size, handmade by him. And then there's even a link to purchase the book. And this link, if you click it, it goes directly to his store, which is also on this website. There's just a nice little extra link so that you can get there straight away instead of having to go to the store and, you know, scroll through his store to find that exact book. You can just click that link and go straight to the book. So basically, I'll go back. So just to show just to go over that again, the way that he's decided to put paintings is to just have a wall of images. And that is different from the way he wants to put his books, which is within that book category, there are multiple books that you can click through and have its own page. So that's what I mean by organization. Sorry, I'm gonna let my dog out real quick. Okay. So that's what I mean by an example of what I mean by organization. It's trying to figure out how much space, how much content each thing needs, and maybe the books need something completely different than the paintings, for instance. And that could be the case for some of your art as well. I'm trying to think of what some of you put down for the types of art that you do. Like textile design versus printmaking. Maybe you have both of those on one website, and maybe the printmaking only needs one nice big photo of the print, and the textile design, you want some close-ups of the weave, you want close-ups of the stitching work, and so you organize that page differently than how you might organize the printmaking pages, for instance. So this is a completely different way of organizing a website. So my friend Marcy, she does both illustration and graphic design, but instead of just doing an illustration and a graphic design, like two categories, I think, in my opinion, her work all ties into kind of the same themes, the same type of funkiness, the same type of vibe. And so for her, she made basically a one-page website where all of her work is there, but you can filter it based on these buttons at the top. So they're not necessarily completely different pages, but if you click on illustration, it'll filter out everything but illustration. If you click on branding, it'll filter out everything but branding work. So this is just a completely different way to organize it, where everything can be viewed all together if you want. If you want to view all of the work together because it's cohesive enough and you think that people would be interested in both at the same time, then you can have it all on one page and you can scroll through it. This would be great for yoga videos, for instance. Like maybe people don't know what type of yoga class they want to do. You know, there's so many different types. There's like yin yoga, there's like more of a relaxing, maybe there's a yoga for cramps or something, and they don't know exactly what they want. So they could just scroll through all of the yoga videos that you have available and then have a filter at the top that if someone knows that they want to work on their legs, or if they want to work on balance specifically, you know, or something like that, then they can filter it out if they want. So they kind of have the option. They don't have to say, okay, I can either do this type of yoga or this type of yoga, and then look at those different classes, because maybe they're interested in, they don't know which one they're interested in. So having a filtration system like this makes more sense for that, for instance, to organize it in a way like that. Anybody have any questions? Good. Cool. So pages to consider in addition to your work. So I feel like we've talked a little bit about, you know, overall aesthetics, overall organization, but normally there's some added pages a lot of artists use to kind of have that extra information about, contact, web store, FAQ, a peers page, which I love. I have a peers page on my website. And I'm going to go into these a little bit more, but basically you have your main work, but a lot of websites, you want this extra information that you have to organize in some way. So the The about page kind of typically has a photo, if you want to include a photo, a bio, a resume, an artist statement, maybe press that you've had, or galleries that you've been into. Again, it doesn't have to include all of these things. These are just common things that are included on an about page. And you can kind of take it or leave it. A contact page can be like its own page in the navigation, or it could just be a section on the about. People do this in different ways, completely up to you. It can include your email address. It can include a contact form. I always find it helpful to link your email so that someone doesn't have to copy and paste into their email client. They can just click a button, and it's pretty easy on all of these to create a hyperlink so that people can just click on that and it'll open up in their email already addressed to you. What else? Yeah, that's my other tip, was to link the email address. But yeah, that can be a section in the about or its own contact page. Again, that whether you do it on your about page or you have it in its own page, when you're trying to make that decision, that can go back to your motive. Like if you do a lot of commissions, maybe the contact is its own page so that it can have a big contact form embedded instead of just like having your email address. If you're doing fine art in galleries or something like that, it's not as often that people need to find your website and reach out to you individually. So maybe the contact is just your email address underneath your bio. So again, it always comes back to that motive. And then web store. Again, if your motive is to sell things, then you definitely would want a web store. Oh, little doggy needs in again. Yeah, so if you're trying to sell something, maybe the web store is very important. Maybe the web store is your landing page so that people are like forced to see what you have to sell at the get-go, or maybe that's just why most people are coming to your page anyway, so it's just easier to have it as your homepage. And most of these website builders have e-commerce set up that you can add to it. But if not, maybe you have an Etsy and you already have an Etsy, you know how to do that. And so you have a page for your store, but it's just a link to the Etsy. So it can be within the site or a separate store that just is linked out. FAQ, this could be frequently asked questions about your process if you want to be able to talk more about the art that you make, or this could be more informative if you do custom work and commissions. Maybe it is FAQs about that, what reference photos you'll need if you're doing a custom drawing or custom illustration. Things like that. How long it normally takes to be able to do X, Y, and Z. If I'm going to do a pet portrait, I will need to know this size. I'll need to know this. And it will normally take about this time. It'll normally be in this budget, yada, yada, yada. Like, will it come framed? No, it won't come framed. So those are things for custom work and commissions. And then I know people who have FAQs about their process, they just find that people are really interested in how they work, what materials, what kind of paint they use, and they want to answer those questions for people who are just curious. It's less like a practical question and more just a curious question, and people have the FAQ on there for that. And then peers, this is just, I've seen a lot more recently people do, and it's just links to other artists' websites. And I the artists that I have links on my website don't even have to do with the same type of art that mine has to do with. So my peers are maybe doing graphic design, or maybe they have a store that is just a really cool store that I like, you know. So I always think that that's nice, just to kind of what's the word, just kind of like boost your peers, and share more artists' work with people. So those are some extra pages apart from your work. Okay. So this website, I thought that it would be nice for us to all go to this website. It is zoekeller.com, ZOEKELLER.com. And we can kind of be thinking about these ideas of motive feeding the style and organization, and kind of be thinking about that. I'm gonna put a 5 minutes timer on, and we can all be looking at what we think this site does really well, maybe what it feels like it doesn't do well, and what choices we think she made and why. So it is about 6:57 right now. So at 7:02, we can kind of come back, and you have time to like browse this website, and then we can have a little discussion about it. Okay. Did everybody get a good chance to thoroughly look through this website? All right. Does anyone have anything they want to share about something that they think that she did well with, or that you think you know kind of why she might have made a choice?
Mm, I don't know why she made a choice. I have another computer I'm looking on. So, but I don't know why she made the choices, but something that I like more so was how her drop down menu for the graphite drawing and her work with me goes. Like she has it itemized per year and type, which
Mhm.
is something I've never seen done on a website. When you go to shows, you see that on the list of
Right.
people's artwork, but I hadn't never even thought about using that same element on web. I like that a lot. And
Yeah.
going to the page is very specific to that type. And on her work with me page, she also keeps that kind of format where she segregates the different collaborative projects, and she even includes licensing details if she's doing anything pro bono, the time frame she's available. Is very clear, and I think that's a lot of things to do well to include that I know I don't do. I don't
Well,
think
and
I
that's
wrote
why
license at all.
absolutely, and that's why I chose this website, is because she has an enormous amount of information on this website that could have been a complete mess if it wasn't organized properly, right? Um, and I completely agree that yeah, the work with me, it has exactly what you need to know, right, in the same spot. And because she does work a lot in galleries, it makes sense that she would date her biggest projects in this graphite drawings drop down. Exactly. Like, and again, that's because of that kind of avenue of art making and art world that she's in, that it makes sense for her to put those dates there, because it kind of works the same as kind of a resume, kind of a gallery, um, kind of like in the gallery world. Yeah, so I completely agree with that. And someone said, oh, did you have anything else to say, Miriam?
No, that was it for me.
Okay,
Thank you, Liz.
cool. And someone said in the chat, it's very organized and detailed. I really like it. Yep. I guess that's essentially what we said. Yeah, very clear and concise. Anybody else? Oh, her work is beautiful. I feel like her work is very organized, laid out, well laid out, and accompanying information is easy to interpret. Yep. Completely agree. And again, because she does work with commissions, mostly in this work with me section, she clearly lays out the different types of commissions, so you can go to exactly what you're thinking about. Do you want a large scale commission? Do you want, she kind of even like convinces you that you need to get this nursery gift for like this baby in your family or something. I'm like, do I need to get this? Yeah, very, very clearly laid out, so it makes it easy for people to get that information that they need. And I'm sure she gets more commissions that way. If I had to kind of cold email someone and they were just like, oh yeah, I do commissions, like why don't you just email me, I would feel a lot more it would feel a lot more daunting than like having all of this information and having some clear cut ideas around it. Right, so again, organizing and adding the specific information that she's added is clearly intentional. Anybody else?
Oh, this is Ellen. I was just going to say, first on the home page, I started saying, oh, she put in dots of colored work in with the graphite.
Yeah.
And at one point I go, oh no, maybe that should have been separated. But then when I went back, I said, no, it kind of draws you in. And then as you go deeper into her page, when the color is just on the larger size. So it's almost like an introduction. And then I noticed on the opening page, she at the bottom, it's not overwhelming, but saying stay in touch 2 or 3 times a year for more information. But it's also on the last page too.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's really important to note that sometimes having information on more than one place is actually really user friendly and really makes a lot of sense. So yeah, for instance, this join my mailing list, and then explains that she only sends out about 2 or 3 emails a year. Your inbox is not going to be inundated with a whole bunch of emails from her if you join up for the mailing list. And just having that, hover in this footer area, which is that section in the bottom that stays the same for every page, just makes sense that it's just there for when you need it. If you look through enough pages and you're like, hell yeah, I need to see more of this art, I'm going to sign up for this mailing list. It's right there at the end of every page. So I completely agree with that, and agree with your assessment of that homepage. At first, it's it would be worrisome if this was like the only place this art is seen, but it is just a snapshot, kind of similar to on my friend Julia Pitch's website that has these those short clips from all of her video work that's just compiled in a little preview. That's what this kind of is for 2D work. It's just a preview of some of the different types of work that she does. And then when you get back into the organization of things, you can actually find exactly what you're looking for. If you wanted to find those bigger colored prints, then they're in those biodiversity prints drop down. Yeah. Anything else you wanted to add, Ellen?
Oh, it's interesting too when she writes about, she does give almost a little bit of history, and you almost travel with her to all the places she's been, with just enough information to give us a taste of how she thinks or what inspires her.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And that is something very important to her. And I completely understand that not every artist needs to go into that much detail, but that the more the facts behind it and the way these ecosystems work are just as important to her as the final product. So it's very, I think that even when she does galleries, and she also has those descriptions added in there because she's very intentionally wants them to exist together. And that's another thing that would have been really hard and really messy to do potentially on a website. And I think that she's done it really well. Yeah. Does anybody else have anything on? I feel like we've talked a lot about organization, mainly because there is just so much information that she's organized well. Anybody have any thoughts on more of the style part? No worries if not. I can also explain some of the things that I see. So I feel like some of the style choices that she added in there is, I think that the font, the Zoe Keller, and the heading font for Zoe Keller is an artist based in Southern Maine, or the very large headers that are in a little bit more of a decorative font than the smaller text, I think it's still super clean, but there's a little bit more of a human element, a little softness to it, without it being too decorative. And I think that, in my opinion, this ocean diversity print, I think you can still see. Can you still see when I'm on her page?
Yes.
Okay, cool. yeah, so this ocean biodiversity print and all of these like really big headings. Yeah, they're still a little bit more decorative than just a simple sans serif, which is like this font here. But stays really clear and doesn't distract from the art. It's just a little fun. I think that most of these pages being white makes sense with this art being on white paper, because it really gets you to go straight to the actual drawing rather than be thinking about this as this two-dimensional flat thing. You are transported right to that three-dimensional aspect of the drawing area versus this like white box. And I think that that's why the white background works really well, because it's just, you're just looking at that those graphite marks on, you know, without having to think about it even being on paper, which I think is really magical. And then when you go into the biodiversity prints, the marine biodiversity has this darker green. And again, it's mainly because it's similar green to this background of this digital print, because again, it just kind of washes, you become part of that drawing. And it does a second purpose of visually separating these color prints from those graphite drawings. You feel like you're in a completely different gallery. You feel like you're in a different wing of a museum by having such a stark difference on just these 2 pages, you know, graphite drawings versus the biodiversity prints. You can just already feel the difference in material that they are made of. And then same for this terrestrial prints. This is another colored print, but it still feels completely separate from the marine print. Her FAQ is incredibly detailed. There is so much content on her FAQ, and this is, I think, also a good example of all the different types of FAQs you might need or not need. Yeah, separate display aspect, yeah. In the chat, I was reading the chat. But yeah, maybe you don't need, you know, you don't feel like you want tips for small business owners or advice, but maybe, you know, you need a Q&A for like this, for instance, her tattoo Q&A. Just so many people wanted to like steal her ideas for tattoo ideas that she had to make this like entire FAQ about tattoos and whether or not people can take her drawings and make tattoos out of them. So she has some very specific FAQs that are very interesting. And this is just like a cool way to organize it too, which is again probably a version of a template. Like maybe for yoga there is like tips or advice for you know, the type of equipment to use, you know, what type of yoga mat is actually the most recommended versus like you know, using a blanket or something. You know, could be an example of something that you could do. And then she does have a shop here. I'll click on that. It's taking a second, but oh, here we go. Her store. And she, within the store, has it organized, which is another filter system. So you can look at all of her work, or if you know that you want to go to postcards specifically because they're in your budget, you can just say postcards and look at what the postcards have to offer and then go back to all. So still continues with that organization and still has, even for the postcards and everything, still has this the white background that makes everything feel pretty cohesive. Yeah. So thanks for deep diving into this website with me. Does anybody else have any last minute things they'd like to add?
I also
Did
like
you?
the tip.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say I also like the tip jar. That's just such a cute thing to add.
Oh, I didn't even
Yeah.
see that. Where is it?
In the shop, if you scroll down, she has a tip jar.
Oh, cute.
Tip jar from $5
Yeah.
or a gift card. Did
Thank
you
you.
know
Oh yeah,
her?
tip jar.
Oh.
There it is.
She went to Maryland. Did you cross paths with her when you were at
Yeah,
school?
we were friends. She was a few years above me, but
Mm-hmm.
she's super sweet.
What a great person to know. So,
Yeah.
or to learn from. So talented.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We have a lot of overlap because I love working in graphite. So we chat about it sometimes. She just moved to Maine too, which
Oh.
is closer than she was before.
Oh, well, thank you for introducing us to her work.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Thank you for showing us the site.
Cool.
Oh.
Of
Yeah,
course.
thank you so very much. I was going to just add that I really love the color schemes here. Not only the simplicity, but the gray is very warm and cozy and inviting.
Yeah.
And I will say, like, if you're not too familiar with this style of art, it could come off intimidating, like, oh, what am I looking at? But I love the simplicity of the colors, and the white, like you said, it pulls you right into. But the gray and the black, it's warm and cozy and actually really inviting.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the warm gray and some of those like blue greens and then that roundness of that font that I was talking about earlier makes it a lot more friendly than it could have been really harsh. I completely agree with you. And if you know her at all, she is not like this, like she's like such a hard worker, but not this like strict I don't know, not harsh at all. So I think that comes off really well in the design choices. Yeah. All right. Okay, let me get back to this. I'm gonna shrink this a little bit. Okay. All right, we're gonna shift gears a little bit. This is kind of an unnatural break, but okay, so one of the last things I wanted to talk about was just a little overview on website builders, because I know that most of us are going to be using a builder rather than trying to build a website completely from scratch or paying someone to do it, because then you probably wouldn't care to even join this. So I think most of us are going to be using some type of builder of some sort. Squarespace, Wix, Weebly, and Cargo, I think, are some of the most common and what I have found to be some of the best ones. I know that someone is using WordPress, which again, I don't have a huge amount of experience with, but from what I gather is it's a little bit tougher because you need to know a little bit more about website building. Like for instance, that like figuring out your drop down menus and everything would probably be easier in one of these other website builders. I think you need to know a little bit more, and there's like a little bit more of a learning curve for WordPress. So I didn't even include it in here for that reason. So here is just kind of a basic rundown graph of the pros and cons and pricing of these top four. I have by far the most experience with Squarespace, but I do know people who like Weebly and Wix. Cargo is really funny because it was the main website builder when I was in high school, and then everyone completely stopped using it. But recently, like in the past couple of years, I think they did a huge remodel and people are starting to use it again. But I haven't used it in a very long time. But I'll just go through some of these pros and cons. So Squarespace has really great templates. And it's cool that you can, if you choose a template and put all of your information, you put your galleries, you put all your pages with all of your content in there, and then you decide at the last minute that you want to change your template, you can do that. You might have to do a little bit of tweaks, but you can very easily change your template and it'll change all the style without making you redo everything. The cons are that there is a little bit more of a learning curve, not quite as much with WordPress, but they do, like I said before, they do have a really great online like instructional videos and stuff like that, like support pages. So if you need to know something specific, you can Google Squarespace drop down menu bar, and then normally they'll have a pretty concise explanation of how to do it. Another con is limited flexibility. This is a con and also not a con. If you don't want to do anything too like fancy, like if you don't want to animate this one specific part, or have as much like this one part I want to be a different color versus like it kind of does like more widespread content changes. So it's actually a lot easier most of the time. But if you're someone who's going to want to take control over every single little detail, this one's not as good for you. But if you're like, I don't know anything about web design and I'm not going to know even what design, you know, what little teeny things to tweak are, then it's like actually kind of a pro that it'll kind of widespread make style changes for you, if that makes sense. And that one is about $14 to $49 a month. Most of these price scales, it's like at the lowest end, a lot of the times they have a limited amount of pages that you can do. Most of this lower end of the price scale will not include e-commerce. So that is if you want to sell something on there, it doesn't include that capability. So if you are trying to sell things, it'll be either in the middle or at the end, the higher end of these scales, because like the more features that you add, the more expensive it is per month. And the other thing is that these are the monthly prices, but most of them also have an annual option that will normally save you a little bit if you are like able to spend the upright cost of the whole year. Wix has loads of templates. I think that they might have like the most templates. And overall, people find it very intuitive and very easy to use. But a con is that once you choose that template at the very beginning, you have to stick with it, or else you have to completely redo your website if you decide that you want to change the look of it later down the line. Another con is I think that generally it's good, but sometimes it's unpredictable how it shifts when it is seen on a phone. So that's called like a website being responsive. It responds to the size of the screen, and it will, change the sizes and everything when you look at your phone versus when you look at it on your desktop. And sometimes it glitches a little bit when it goes from one to the other. And that one's $16 to $45 a month, so about the same as Squarespace. I think they used to have a free option, but they don't anymore. Weebly is also easy to use, generally speaking, and it has a generous free plan. So basically, if you are willing to have it be www.weebly.com/Marria Nakhoda or something like that, so it won't have your specific URL, it will be free though. So it's a good way to either start out if you don't, or if, again, this is more for family and friends than it is for like professional stuff, then maybe you don't need that custom domain name and you'd rather just have a free site. Cons are that the templates are nice and simple, but there's not as many options for if you want to do something a little bit more fun, if you want to do something a little bit more edgy. But that is free to $26, so it is the cheapest option here. Cargo is specifically for creatives and it has very modern designs, which I put as a pro and a con. If you go to cargo.com, you'll see what I mean. It's super trendy, super modern. They have different, they have slightly different feelings, but it's kind of all in the same modern vibe. And you'll know exactly what I mean when you go there. I think that for a lot of people, it's just gonna look like shitty websites. Sorry for the language. But it is kind of the trend right now to make websites that look like this. But so that's kind of a pro and a con because it is very, very hip and fresh. And again, always goes back to that motive. If you're trying to make work that is going to be really appealing to like companies right now, then like that would be the way to go. And that's $13 to $22. Others to note are Shopify, WebNode, and Pixpa. Shopify is definitely if your focus is selling items. I haven't worked in Shopify, and I think that their templates are also on the more simple side, but they'll have like the most functions for selling items. WebNode, the cool thing about WebNode is that you can create multilingual sites. So if that's really important to you, I would do WebNode. So basically it can translate the whole website for you and you can have that feature for viewers. And if that's important, WebNode has that capability. Pixpa is good for photographers. Especially because it provides client proofing galleries. So if you are strictly a photographer and you do a huge shoot, like a engagement shoot or something, then you can send it proofing galleries so people can choose which of the photos they want, and it sets it up for you. So you just send a link to someone and they can look at all the photos and choose what they want without getting all of the final files. Which no one said that they were a photographer, I don't think, but it could potentially be helpful for in other ways, maybe. I'm just not sure, and I don't know as much about it, but I do know that that's like one of the main ones for photographers. And then last thoughts, gather inspiration. So before I do any graphic design work, and especially before I would do a website for someone else or for myself, I would gather inspiration. And that just looks like, to me, is there are so many websites that collect great websites that are portfolio websites or are marketplace websites, which is just like where you sell things. Squarespace, and I know some of the others as well, have like a gallery of websites using those different templates. I use Pinterest a lot. You just go to Pinterest and you type in maybe it's yoga studio website, and you just kind of look through and see what you like and see what you don't like. You see one that you don't like and you're like, why don't I like this? And you're like, it's because it seems too harsh because it's all black and white and there's no color, or whatever reasoning. I think that is a huge help in the long run, because sometimes you need those examples to know what you like and what you don't like, rather than just trying to like imagine it from nowhere. Especially if you're not a designer, then your brain doesn't work that way necessarily. So gathering inspiration is something that I always feel like should be a huge part of the process. Pay attention to detail. This is something, design is very detail oriented. And I think that some of my artist friends who don't do design work can make sites that that can either like lose you or not be as polished, that makes it harder to navigate, for instance, or harder to see certain images. I think that having cohesive way of editing all of your photographs of your work, maybe you have the same backdrop for every single thing, and maybe that's a little bit extra work, but that attention to detail will make the overall thing look really professional and very clean and very cohesive, for instance. So always kind of give yourself time to take a break, come back and look at all of the detail of it, all of the spacing, make sure that things feel cohesive. Take advantage of Google. There are so many people who are also trying to make websites that don't know what they're doing. I even like, I've been using Squarespace for years and I Google things all the time. I say Squarespace, I don't know. I can't think of like a exact thing right now, but if you type it in like whatever website builder you're using and then say how to, make a new page, make a new group of page, make a drop down menu in your navigation. It's always there's always people trying to ask the same questions, or people that are just there to teach. And then phone a friend. I think it's always really important to just, I have friends sometimes who are like, I just need your opinion on this website that I'm doing. And we'll come over, we'll have dinner, and we'll all look at the website and see what makes sense, see what doesn't, have someone navigate through all the pages and be like, was there a break and like you couldn't find, you had to trial and error find where this was on the page, or things like that. Always very helpful, especially when the friend doesn't know anything about graphic design. Like, it's not like you have to phone someone who knows what they're talking about. It's actually more the people who are going to look at it are not as versed with design is more likely. So always, kind of getting insights from friends and what works and what doesn't work, I think is also very valuable. And then we just have Q&A, which I am like very happy to try to answer as specific questions as you have, or general questions. Or questions about how to organize a specific page.
I have a question about that. So for like Wix, for instance, like you said, they went away for a little while. People stopped using them. And I have a girlfriend of mine that I went to school with that's asked me to help her figure out how to make like a collection on her homepage with Wix. And I don't know. It's like I'm not proficient in Wix. I'm not proficient in Wix. I don't know, but I said I'll try to help you, but it's it feels complicated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and sometimes it's just like the different language that different website builders use. So for Squarespace, that would be called a gallery. So sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's easy to Google something and say Wix homepage, collection of images or something. And sometimes it's a little bit harder when you don't know the language that they use. But if there's something that a general Google can't, isn't really getting what you're saying, I would go to the Wix website and see if they have like like they might have like a support, let's see. Some type of support thing. Like resources. Maybe all tools and features. Maybe this is just basic. So like it says something about media galleries. Maybe that's what it display your images, videos, and text. So maybe try saying like how to, you know, Wix media gallery for homepage or something. Yeah,
Maybe that's
sometimes you have to do some
fine.
research before Googling.
See what they're saying, what they call it.
Yeah. Sometimes that's helpful to kind of find what they're talking about.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I don't have an easy answer to it, but sometimes they have different versions online of like their own FAQ essentially. Like using your editor, page structure, like creating a one-page site, like going through these types of things.
Oh, I see.
Pages, gallery, cropping and editing gallery images, and you can like kind of scroll through them and then they'll give you a how-to, like click the gallery, click media manager, or change images. You see how it's like giving a
Step by step.
Yeah, step by step. But it sometimes takes a second to kind of find exactly what you're looking for when you don't know all of their vocabulary.
Right.
But yeah, most of them, it can be really helpful to find their help. This is like the help center or whatever. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Could I throw out a question? It's Ellen.
Yeah, absolutely.
When is there certain equipment that or brand names that you really like, or what do you use when you sit and you're looking at your desk? What kind of equipment do you have or recommend? Are you
a
like,
website?
do you work on desktop? Do you work on laptop? Do you drawing tablet? All the above?
Oh yeah, good question.
Oh,
Yeah, I have a laptop and I will plug it into a monitor when I need more space. But honestly, it kind of works well to work on a smaller screen like a laptop when you're doing website design like this and using the web builder, because that is exactly how most people will be seeing on it, you know, seeing the website is like
point.
not on a huge screen, right? So sometimes it's really helpful to use just a normal laptop or a desktop computer that's not huge, just to be able to see it how most people will be seeing it at home on their computers.
Okay.
Yeah, and like most of this is just you're just on the internet and using the mouse and moving around. So you don't really need a tablet unless you want to do some digital illustration that you add to it for whatever reason. So mostly I just use my laptop and laptop screen when I'm working on websites.
Oh, pretty straightforward and simple then.
Yeah.
Pretty straightforward. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody else?
I have another question. It's
Go for it.
more about like domain names more. So like I see a variety, you know, some people just go with their birth name. some people have like, I guess, a artist name.
Mhm.
Is there like a preference on domain name, I guess, between the two?
That's a good question. It depends on your audience, really. Something also to consider is if you're going to be telling people, like speaking the URL, like how hard that is to say. Like, do you need to say like, oh, like for instance, one of my friends, our Instagram handles is strong hands, but the O is a 0. And if you don't type it in with a 0, it won't come up. So now whenever she tells people, oh yeah, go to my Instagram, it's strong hands, she has to be like, it's strong hands, but the 0, but the like, but the O in strong is actually, you have to type it as a 0, you know? So part of it is like, how easy is it to say? How easy is it to spell? Like my name's not easy to spell, but I still just have it simply, my name is my website is just marrianakhoda.com, just because of the simplicity of it. But that's something to consider, is like, if you're going to be like telling people to go to it, or if it's going to be typed out, is it going to be easily, you know, readable? Professionally wise, I think it's more common to just use your name, or use your name and then art. Like, I don't remember if Zoe Keller is just, yeah, Zoe's is just zoekeller.com, but there was another person who, you know, it was like a name, you know, like Megan Chin Art is one of my friends' domain names. So it's kind of up to you. Or like people who do ceramics sometimes will kind of have like a ceramic shop name. So instead of saying Marria Nakhoda Ceramics, they might say, I think that I saw someone, it was like highglossceramics.com, you know, and so they like made a shop name for themselves. So again, if you're selling things mostly, and especially more craft things and not like fine art things, I think that having a store name is probably more common.
Oh, I see. Yeah, more of a commission.
Right. So if you're more commissions, then I think that your name is the most common, to just use your name and maybe say art or paintings or yeah, something like that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Or like miriampaints.com or something like that is also kind of common. But I tend to go just more classic and say marrianakhoda.com is what I did. But yeah.
Okay.
There's no hard and fast rules.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Oh. It's Ellen again. I tend to ask a lot of questions.
That's fine.
Being that I found this in a roundabout way, what is vision-driven consulting? I see it. It came in under vision-driven consulting, VDA.
Yeah. I'm gonna let Jasmine answer that one, because I think that she'll do a better job than I will.
Is it organization in the visual arts?
So yes, so vision artists, I'm so sorry.
Oh.
So to answer your question, Vision Driven Artists is a nonprofit organization that was started by Brittany Caprice, who is the director. And we offer free workshops for artists and art organizations in all disciplines. And this workshop is a part of our winter series. We actually have a workshop every month. Last month, we talked about intro to grants. This month, we are here with Mara learning about web design. And next month, we're going to be tackling budgeting and financing for artists. And so I'd be happy to share with you all the list of the remaining workshops that we have for you all to enjoy. And we do this every month, every second Monday. This actually was an in-person event at the Rotunda for years. And then once the pandemic hit, we became virtual, which has its benefits because we can now record workshops and post them on our YouTube for replays. And we also get to partner with artists like Mara, who are not technically in Philly, but still a part of the VDA family.
How do
I
artists
happen
join
to be in Philly actually, but
we weren't sure if you were in Atlanta or here. So that's
no,
cool.
no. Yeah,
Thank
I'm
you.
here.
How
Thank
do
you.
artists join VDA?
So we actually have a Facebook group that we keep all communications in, and I'm going to put the link to our Facebook group here so that you all can join our group. And this is where we actually have all of not just VDA resources, but resources from our partners, Culture Works, the Leeway Foundation. We are partnered with the Rotunda. Yes. I'm sorry, I thought I want to destroy your name. D-Dale. Yes, this workshop is recorded and it will be on our YouTube, and you all will receive an email tomorrow afternoon at 12 p.m. with the link to this replay. Got you covered. I just added into the chat, everyone, the Vision Driven Artists Resource Facebook group, which is where you can find information about our workshops and grant funding opportunities, employment opportunities for artists of all disciplines. We try to keep the group really informative. Oh, you're very welcome. And so if you are looking for more resources like what we offer here tonight, definitely join our Facebook group. And I also will share our website link as well, where we have tons of resources for artists. Anything from, like I mentioned, grant funding, consulting. We have self-care tips for artists. We have a really good grants calendar that actually lists all the grants that are happening every month, every year. So yeah, please come tap into what we are doing over at Vision Driven Consulting.
Yeah, I'm about to watch the taxes for artists one because I haven't done my taxes yet.
You're not alone, me too. And Tim is fantastic. And another benefit about Vision Driven Artists that you can just reach out to us if you need to speak with one of the facilitators. They are very personable and they want to support. So if anyone watches the replay for the taxes for artists or the intro to grants, please feel free to contact me or reach out into the group like, hey, can I catch that information? And I'll connect you all with the facilitator as well.
Great.
Oh.
Beautiful.
I'm just going to read the chat very quickly. Yay, yes. Thank you so much, Megan. We're so happy to have you all. You all make VDA. So if anyone has any more questions for Mara, we have about 10 minutes left before we close out our workshop for today or for tonight. Or questions around Vision Driven Artists or our workshops. And I also just shared the link to our website as well. And if you don't have any more questions or just not at this time, then we can end our workshop 10 minutes early if that's okay with you all. Unless you all want to hang around and ask some more questions with Mara. If not, as I mentioned, tomorrow at noon, you will see an email from me thanking you all for joining us, and you will have a link to the replay of tonight's workshop, as well as an invitation to join us next month on May 11th. We'll be working with River, who is the owner of Be Intentional Finance, and she will be teaching us how to budget and manage our finances as artists, which I think is very importante. And so please feel free to register tomorrow if you see fit, or if you think of an artist or individual or anyone that can benefit from these workshops, please send them our way. And just want to thank each and every one of you for joining us tonight on this Monday evening. And thank you to our facilitator, Mara, for the information. We really, really appreciate you for hosting this again.
Absolutely. Thanks to all of you too.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful.
Great.
Thank you.
And thank y'all for your participation. This was one of the most active groups that we've had. Thank you.
No, it's always that's always the scary part. I'm like, will people ask questions?
I think you did so good incorporating that. It was very balanced. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
Yes,
This was
come on,
great.
Jen.
Thanks, everyone.
Yay. Well, everyone enjoy your evenings and have a wonderful week. And hopefully we'll see you next month.
Sounds good.
Thank you again so much. It was wonderful. Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night. Yeah, this was awesome.
Good.
It definitely helps take the anxiety out of and I think what happens is you get so excited about what it looks like at the end that starting kind of like takes you back some. When you started with like, well, what's your intention? I'm like, that's a good place to start. What are you doing this for?
It's weird that you forget that, but it's super easy to. But I think that like as a designer, that's one of the first things that you're supposed to like if I have a client, you're supposed to learn everything you can about them, who their target audience is, all of that kind of stuff. And I think that that's drilled into me as, you know, being trained to do graphic design. But when you're just trying to promote yourself, you forget about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah.
And I wanted to I should have asked you this. So like a reference website, like for example, I have websites that I save that I love, and I'm like, I love how they did this. I love how they did that.
Yeah.
And kind of just like a reference so that if I were to collaborate with you, it's like, this is where I want to end up. So like what steps will we take to get there?
Yeah, absolutely. And then comparing those, you know, those lists, those reference websites can also give you a clear idea of what you actually like. You're like, oh, all of these do this the same. Like sometimes it's hard to pinpoint why you like a certain thing. And sometimes just seeing like all of them, you know, like have them all open on your tabs and shift, you know, you can be like, oh, it's because all of them have the navigation on the top right and they're all in this color. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm going to try that.
Yeah, it's good because especially when you're not a designer, you don't have that eye. It helps a lot.
But also I'm learning, like, if I have a clear understanding of what my motive is, brand vision, all those things, I can work with a designer that has the method mindset and just kind of be that muse of information. Yeah. And that gives me a chance to collaborate and also to support another artist. So we don't have anything.
That's the best of both worlds for both of you.
Yeah.
Oh
man, well, thank you so much, more. I will definitely be emailing you for sure.
Cool. Yeah. Let me know if you have questions, if you need a designer, any of that. Just let me know. I'm here.
Yes. Awesome.
And in Philly.
I know, which is dope. So I hope that I get to either see some work that you're doing, or I'm not interested in a tattoo right now, but hey, even if you're having like an event or a part of a presentation, please, I'll be interested to come out and support.
Cool. Sounds great.
All right. Well, everyone have a great night.
Good night.